Yes, we are live now. Are you able to hear us? It will have a little delay, but I sent you the link, right? So hi guys, we'll start at 9 o'clock. Just five, again another 6 minutes. We'll wait for the audience. And
It is audible.
okay,
It's audible in
clear, right?
YouTube. Yeah, clear.
Okay, cool. And is it like viewable on the event page, fifth IR event page? If you can check there. Um,
Yeah.
and Oscar, if you can just remind to the audience on different platform, you can send the post.
Yes.
Okay. So it's another 3-4 minutes left. Regardless of, I believe that the audience would join a little late also, but we'll start at exactly at 9 o'clock. So we do not forget. So I'm starting the recording also. Recording also started. Ankur, I am making you co-host. Maybe sometime there is a network issue or something. So
Thank you.
okay, and then I think you will have right to mute and unmute yourself on your own. I see few viewers on the streams also. Hello everybody. Those who are on the stream, they can directly send their chat message to YouTube, or if they are directly on the fifth IR page, they can directly use the Facebook chat messenger to connect with us. We'll be listening and taking up your queries to Ankur. You can in parallelly join the WebEx link on the fifth IR event page. Directly you can join the WebEx now. So hi Mr. Rao. So it's just 2 minutes and then we'll start. Hi Shankar Bose. So another 1 minute and we'll start. In the meanwhile, if you guys anyone need to ask any question or anything with Ankur, Obviously, we would start now, but you still have 1 minute to ask him anything if you want. Put it in the chat window or just let us know and we'll unmute you. Okay, so just wait for another maybe 50 second or 30 seconds more and then we'll start. Just waiting for a few more audience. You can use your chat window. Yeah. Yes. Partly it's true, Dhruv. We are going to talk about REST API, but at a very high level. It's more around microservices, more around different concept of solution architecture, and how you build your application, modern application, when the cloud is now everywhere, when multi-cloud is everywhere. There are different type of databases available now. So we'll talk about different mode of different way of designing the modern application. This is more around architecture rather than just looking at from the like one specific technology, which is REST API or anything. Okay, guys, welcome everyone. So we'll not take more time and we'll start now. So I believe everyone is able to hear me loud and clear. If you can
Yeah, Anjali, we
confirm.
can hear you.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you, Ankur, for joining and from your busy schedule and joining us for this fantastic session on top 10 tips for modern solution and technical architect. And obviously, we'll keep on connecting with you for your further guidance on different topics, topic around solution architecture, design architecture, and technical architecture. And I believe whenever you will have time, obviously, you will help us down the line also. Thank you once again, and let's start the session. And thank you everyone who have joined and those who will be joining within a minute. We are, the session is top 10 top tips for modern solution and technical architect. We have already announced this is more around microservices, more around how the different solution architecture are being built today, how we are building the new application or new design that you are doing with the advent of cloud computing, with the advent of multiple tooling that has come up and evolved with the time, and the DevOps, the way DevOps, AI, and everything has been integrated together. Uh, is completely getting different than what it was in the monolith world. So if I talk about Fifth IR is a platform which is more designed and built for the community and talks about fifth industrial revolution, which is upcoming industrial revolution, and we are almost transitioning to it indirectly, I would say, not directly, but it's very swift, very fast, and the way we have grown in the past 1 year is just a story now, which is like we have covered most of the part of the world, and this map just shows our analytics data which is there with us, and this is just 3-4 months back, and we have forgot to refresh it recently, which is much more higher than this one. So fifth IR is a new way to engage on virtual coffee globally. It's like 30-40 minute session. In the weekend, you can give some time and then you can start with something new. And so there is a lot of community benefit when you join fifth IR platform. So there is learner certificate and exams, which is widely accepted by the community. And now because the community is from most of the Fortune 500 multinational senior architects and uh, different level of experts which are there. So people understand and people have started understanding the need of such type of discussion and globally. It's help upgrades through short sessions, so you don't have to spend a lot of time in a study. Just take some time
Yeah,
from
Anjali,
your
sorry to interrupt. Are you sharing something? Because I don't think your
Okay,
screen is
so
visible.
okay, yeah, sorry, I was yes. So, okay, so are you able to see my screen?
Yeah, we can now.
Okay. Sorry, guys. Actually, I and Ankur were testing something and it went back. I will just quickly wrap it up. So the session is on 10 top tips for modern solution and technical architect. and Ankur will be talking in detail in just less than 5 minutes now. From now, this is fifth IR, which is now globally available, and people from different continent join us for different multiple sessions. Those are short sessions that we do, and there are different detailed session also we do in terms of courses, in form of courses. Uh, Joining fifth IR is like engaging on a virtual coffee globally. The community benefit is like there's a learner certificate and exams with each and every session. The few sessions there are exams we also set, but most of the session have at least participant certificate. We help upgrade through short sessions. We sessions are voluntarily curated by engineers from top companies, and these are not just trainers. These are the real people working in the industry right away, and they just try to spend the minimum amount of time that they get, and also from mostly from their personal life, because we ideally do it on Saturday and Sunday, because we know that most of the people are engaged from Monday to Friday. This is a hub for educators, learners, job seekers, and people looking for experts, maybe paid or volunteer. We don't bother about that. Community evangelist certificates. This is for people who are engaging more and more community. Either they are mentoring people or they are making more people aware. So we have MVPs, master mentor certificate, and a lot of different things that comes up with a lot of goodies that we keep on passing to the community, and a lot of other benefit. Maybe when you are in transition, we can help you out, or maybe there is some odd coming up in your life there, because we have the community has built and grown in a way that there's more help coming out anytime when you need us. Training partnership with cloud companies. So we are one of the premium partner for Alibaba Cloud, and we have a direct engagement with Microsoft and multiple major cloud companies to help you out in considering your transitioning goals. So for people who are like on this team or who has gone through the dashboard, once they complete this session, they can directly use this link, the green icon which is there, to claim their certificate. And then also, if they want, they can upload their CV, they can see suggested sessions. And if they don't want to log in, they can, for any future session, they can directly come to the platform and they can click this calendar, and they will see save to any calendar, and they can save the event for the time being. And then later on, when they join, they can use the calendar to this link from their calendar to join the meeting. People who are on live, we have already announced that they can directly chat us through the YouTube channel, or they can chat us with the Facebook Messenger, which is there on their dashboard through which they have come. If talk about community, I am Anjani Kumar. I am the founder of Multi-Cloud for You. I have with me Gavaskar. He is our delivery director. He looks most of our training and evangelism platform, takes care of it. We had supported and under guidance by Sweta Singh and Bhaskar Tripathi, who are co-founder, and we have teammates who are helping us with Gavaskar, Abhishek Gaurav, Dhruv Gupta, Paranjay Manjanda, Soumya Pranjal, and we are volunteered by evangelists worldwide. Now to start with Dheeraj Singh, he is a voluntarily evangelist and chief engagement orchestrator for North America, mostly in the data world. Jay Garg, he is from Singapore. Abhishek Mishra, mostly in the Azure side. Deepak Singh, DevOps. Priyesh Prat, Azure Data. Nilosima Srivastava, DevOps. Harvak Singh in the network area. Suresh Kandula is a very senior person, and he talks about solution enterprise architecture. Anna Hoffman is from Microsoft. She talks about data democratization whenever she joins, whenever she gets some time from her busy schedule. Arshad Ali, Mahesh Patil, and there are more than 10,000 plus of supporters across the globe. We have almost 4 generations of transformer as guests. You can see Bill Inman, Jeff Barr, and multiple people. You name it. If you need to talk with him or you need to hear him, just let us know, and we'll try to connect with him and bring him for the session. We have Ankur Kumar today. He's the architect, director technology. He has also run through a journey and life experience in engineering and technology and solution architecture. He's currently a director technology at Publicis Sapient. He is experimentalist, enabler, lead architect, and financial services. And he runs a very nice blog called buildcraft.com. The link is also there, and he'll also share right away. He has a lot of Twitter followers. If you go and just try to hear him at Ankur Kumar Jed, and then you can connect to him on LinkedIn directly here. So with this session, there is a test certificate. We call it Modern Solution Architect 101. We'll pass the speaker code through which you can claim the certificate right after the session. So over to Ankur, sir.
Thanks, Anjani, for the nice introduction. So let me share my screen first and then prepare few things just to make sure we put some context to the talk. So today we're going to talk about building modern architecture, and I know most of us have been doing this job in different capacities. Today I'm just going to talk about top 10 tips based on what's my experience so far, and I've been running this Faithcraft as a platform and working with Sapient. I'm in industry for almost 25 years. It's there are there is always a journey which you go through as part of your experience. So but the journey doesn't stop here. There are always things changing in technologies, right? So one thing which I always promote is that how updated you are, and you have to. I know Anjani is one of the lead guys in this area where he keep talking about what's the latest trends and bring a lot of technology community together. So I think that's one of the ways you can do that, right? So in today's session, we just gonna talk about top 10 tips for modern solution or technical architects, what we are, and because the industry is changing fast pace. So we'll start with something which you must have all heard about, microservices architecture, right? So I know that it's in a stage where it's not a new terminology. It's not something where it's like 5 years back it was something where people were talking about it. Now it's more into a productionized where people are using it in their production system, and you will see a lot of white papers of InfoQ and so many other blog sites where they are talking about now lesson learned from microservices architecture. So it's no longer a new technology. You don't have to reinvent the wheel when you are talking about microservice architecture. What you can do is that you can learn a lot from what others have been doing. So one way of understanding microservice architecture and one way of making sure that you are successful is just follow the lead of what the other frameworks are doing. So earlier, lots of these frameworks, they're not as per microservices architecture, but in the last few years, we have seen the rise of some new frameworks, as well as some of these frameworks are now kind of making themselves customized for microservice architecture. So I'll just share a few example, and this is very specific to Java side of the world. Like microprofile has emerged in last 4 years, is one of the emerging standards for microservices in Java. And although it started with Java, it's not limited to Java only. So what they did is that they created that microservice itself is not you are creating a small service, so it's not a big deal. The big deal is around the ecosystem. When I say ecosystem, that how you are monitoring service, how you are managing the metrics of the service, how you are tracing your service request, what is the interface. Like we talked about, somebody asked REST, right? That right now REST is not the only protocol through which you talk to microservice. You can use GraphQL, you can use gRPC, and then the things are evolving, right? So this community, it's an open source community. What they started creating is more like a specification. So if you remember your Java EE specification or Java JSR specification, you can correlate that. Similar to that, they've started creating that what does it take that if I have to create a microservice ecosystem, these are the specifications you need to follow, right? You have to have a tracing mechanism, you have to have a fault tolerance mechanism, and all these different aspects. So now that they created a standard, most of the frameworks, and this is a framework journey you can see on my screen, is in last 20 years, right? You can see that how the frameworks have started. I know Spring got launched in 2003, and then there are other frameworks became popular, like Play framework, Axon, and Vertex, and all. But in last 5 years, if you look at the trend, that when since microprofile specification got launched in 2016, and I've written a blog on this on Vedcraft, is that when we see this what's happening is now they have started following certain standards, and you can discount Spring framework because the Spring has never followed. They don't believe in following a particular specification. They are very opinionated, so they don't want to follow. Like they never followed Java EE specification for that matter. So, but some of the frameworks, which are the new frameworks, like on the right hand side of the screen, you can see Helidon, Micronaut. These are some new age frameworks which are coming out in the modern world. And you need to be, why I'm saying we need to be observant of these frameworks, because these frameworks are lightweight, very less memory footprint, very quick to start for serverless. So the Quarkus, for example, by IBM, got, I mean, it was concepted by Red Hat, but now it's acquired by IBM. So they are creating those super efficient, very light footprint, ready for microservices, ready for serverless kind of Java framework. So if you see that evolution, microservice itself doesn't dictate that you need a one framework. In fact, I have seen in my experience, you can use a Spring framework along with Quarkus for suppose lightweight application. And nowadays, some new frameworks like Armaria is a very interesting framework where that supports Spring framework and so many other frameworks in parallel. That supports gRPC and REST and other protocols in parallel. So some of these frameworks you need to be aware of just so that you can leverage in your architecture. As an architect, you need to be aware of, so that microservices doesn't tell you that you are tied to one framework. So you can definitely start using multiple frameworks in your system. But the first thing first is that you need to be aware of what's happening, and this following this specification and all, right? And it's not only limited to Java, and I can see some of the microservices frameworks are also getting extended. A lot of popularity is getting in other languages like Node. We all know that Node has been, doing a lot. You can develop indirectly in Node, but you can now you started seeing some frameworks which are very specific for microservices like Molecular and Nested. These are something very specifically designed for microservices, so that you don't have to worry about all the life cycle which we talked about, right? So similarly, Golang is, you can use Golang as a pure modern language to write microservices. You don't need to use any framework. But then again, like GoKit and GoMicro, they provide a lot of these frameworks have been customized, and somebody is asking IoT. Yes, of course, GoKit is very lightweight. Even Node and Java is now, they are creating a micro mini framework so that you can run it on IoT devices and all. Python has been great in creating such frameworks for IoT. And you can see again, Python, Flask, Falk, all these new frameworks, they have been customizing themselves for microservice architecture. So the idea is not that there are so many choices. It's just about when you are making a selection, you have to be observant of all the languages and the frameworks which which can offer you many different advantages, right? So that you know what my choices are, you can make a selection. And that's an example which Microsoft shared recently, that they were creating an architecture with their recommended that how you can create, like, you have say 12 microservices in this example. Like each microservice can have its own framework. You don't need to tie to one framework, right? Because suppose you wanted something where everything is JSON based, so you can use Node.js all the way through. If you feel that you already have .NET services, maybe .NET, you can use .NET Core, which is nowadays support Linux Docker containers as well, is to launch that your microservice. So you're not tied to one particular microservice framework. You can use as what you see that is available as per your requirements. So the key message: be observant, be aware of these frameworks. Don't tie to one language, one framework. Always be looking out what is best for it. So as a technologist, we should be all language agnostic as well. And being a Java programmer for 20 years, I can say that now, because I've been also learning like Golang, um, with the Node.js and with the Python, because we all need to adapt, right? So we should be open in our thought process if it's needed, because microservice typically is a very small service. So you can use any framework, any language based on what you need. So the second pointer, apart from microservice, is is mostly about the pattern and technology which you use for communication, and that's very sensitive topic, because when you have say like Netflix, right? They have thousands of web services, thousands of microservices, and they definitely each service has to talk to each other. So you don't want to create a very chatty kind of a system as well there, like you're spending too much time talking to each other, and you also don't want to create like a lot of data going over the wire, right? So communication protocol, communication mechanism, and all these are choices which you need to make when you are using microservices. So the key message from my side is there is no silver bullet. It's not that somebody says, oh, you use REST. That no, that's not what you will see in industry. Like there are always um, choices available to you, and these choices you have to make in the context of the system which you are designing. It's not going to be that, okay, this is what you should do in all the systems, right? So I just compiled some of the things, right, that just for you, that what are the options you have when it comes to communication pattern. When I say communication pattern, is that how services are talking to each other. You might be using a saga pattern where essentially you are using event based architecture, and the messages are services are not coupled with each other. They are talking through the event based mechanism, and in that context you have choreography or orchestration as a mechanism that you can use. You can use CQRS pattern where you have a command and query. You are using commands for any transactions. You are querying where you are have a different system to query and different database to query. So you can, based on what, if you have a very high throughput read system, you can use CQRS. Um, and then there is an event sourcing pattern, which is it works in the event driven architecture, where you can say, I want to record all my events, and I can play back. I have an event data store. I can play back the events to recreate a system state. So these are the choices. It's not only if I'm, like in earlier days when we were coding only REST or only like blocking calls or synchronous or request reply mechanism, then the pattern was very simple. You have a request and reply. But now these are the now evolving pattern which you can use in microservices architecture, because the moment you start using a lot of request response, which is nowadays a lot of experts are saying it's more like an anti-pattern, because the moment you are saying I'm going to use the communication style like request response, it becomes synchronous. So what happens if the service fails, and then there are thousands of other things which can go wrong. So people are moving towards async, decoupled kind of architecture, right? So event based, polling based, callback based are the communication style which are coming and becoming popular these days. And similar to that, there is a message format which is also under the discussion. And when I say message format, JSON with REST have been, been the most popular choice in last few years. But that's no longer a choice these days. You have GraphQL, and I've recently seen a big financial company adopting like GraphQL, where you can ask what you want from the backend system, and it's very different from REST. Like you have 20 different REST interfaces. In GraphQL, you have a single interface, single endpoint. From there, you still use the REST, but you can send the request back to your behind the scene API, so that you only give your front end what the front end is looking for. And then with Google introducing gRPC, synchronous communication is back into the picture. So where you are using a binary protocol. If you have to remember Corba, which was like 10, 25, 15, 20 years back, that we used to have binary protocols like that. Now it's like Google has reinvented like gRPC, where it's based on the protocol buffer, which is a binary protocol. So if you need a very fast, very lightning fast kind of communication between services, then definitely gRPC is the way to go. So if you're looking at this list, you can now sense that there are many choices, and you have to make the choice based on what you're looking for, right? Similarly, like in the recent times, WebSockets is becoming a lot popular because now the front end and back end, they can talk bidirectional using WebSocket. It's not like REST where you are sending a request and receiving a reply. WebSocket is a constant communication between browser and your backend system. It's a duplex communication. So that again opens up so many communication patterns, right? That you can use any other protocol behind WebSocket. You don't have to use JSON only. So these are the new possibilities, and with the possibilities, you have more choices, and with more choices, and definitely you can create better architecture. So the key message is that nothing is silver bullet. It's not the rest is best in all the scenarios, or gRPC is best in all the scenarios. You have to focus what is best based on what application you are developing, what is your business requirement, what is your non-functional requirement, and all that. So moving on, I think this communication is, like we talked about, another area. And the third thing which I'm seeing in last few years is standardization. And why standards? Because you have seen, if the organization do not have a standards, it eventually become more like a chaos, right? So a lot of companies have started, especially financial companies, and that is going across industry, that they started using standards. So standards and the design first approach. You don't have to develop the API and then do the reverse. You have to first design what is my API contract should look like, and then apply the industry standard. So standards is like microprofile is one standard for microservices. Similarly, for over the years, we have seen that since 2000, right, that we have SOA coming up, and then that gave birth to Swagger in some shape or form to document how the REST API contract should look like. And when the microservices came in 2014-ish timeframe, I think it started gaining momentum. The event-driven architecture in 2016 and all, we can see the new specifications, or you can say standards, coming into the picture. And I've written a blog again on Waitcraft on this one. You can see more details over there. But the three specifications in the recent time, which is very important, is the Open API for REST, which is prescribing you that how you should document the REST API. Async API is for developed for how the services should talk when you are using an async communication pattern, and that's again a standard, so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And then the CNCF is right now promoting cloud events, and cloud events is also for async, but it's slightly different for service mesh communication kind of style. So these are the new trends which are coming. Like you can adopt them as standard even if you're using asynchronous. You don't have to say that, oh, asynchronous means I can send any message format or any. You can still use the standards which are prevalent in the industry, so that you remain close to something which is industry specific. So my recommendation: explore these APIs, explore these standards, so that what's coming on, and use them in your when you are designing the API contract, right? Now the fourth point, which definitely is coming at very fast, and it's becoming more like an accelerator now, is a service mesh. And service mesh is recently, I would not say it's still evolving. It's still like, I have seen this service mesh I've been following since last 5 years. Like when Istio first came, I did experiment with Istio. But service mesh is now becoming more and more like an accelerator. When I say accelerator, um, you know, because it gives you certain capabilities which you might not have to program or write, right? So, or even use a framework. It's more like an infrastructure layer, but it gives you lots of capabilities outside out of the box. So and some of the capabilities which I'm gonna show you is like connectivity, like how the services should talk to each other, service discoverability. That is already coming inbuilt with any service mesh framework. And same with observability or monitoring, it comes as a sidecar pattern, and it comes with, when you're using service mesh, you can already most of the service mesh platforms, they already have inbuilt or support for the inbuilt observability. Similarly, for load balancing, traffic control, WebSockets and gRPC, what we talked about, all these communication patterns and different failover mechanism, it's all traffic control is also inbuilt in service mesh framework. So that already gives you certain advantage. So that's why I'm calling it as an accelerator with along with security and policy management. So most of the service mesh solutions, they will provide all these key aspects in when you are deploying the service mesh. So a standard service mesh architecture will be something like this, where you definitely, with each of your service, you will have some proxy deployed, and then there is and this is specifically from Istio, but essentially it's similar to Kubernetes or any other system, where you have a control plane and then you have a data plane. So the control plane in all these proxies which are deployed along with service takes care of all the non-functional aspects which we talked about, like discovery, configuration, and all. And control plane controls how they're working and all. So it already gives you some of the like we talked about capabilities which we were trying to figure out when we started developing microservices. So a lot of companies these days and have started using service mesh because of the same reason, that they don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of how services should talk to each other, how they should discover each other. And that's why service mesh as a framework is as a platform is evolving as a new way of doing business when it comes to microservices. And open source, I just want to mention that open source is definitely leading the innovation. And with this Istio, this is a snapshot from CNCF. So you can see that Linkerd and Meshri, and these are all upcoming service mesh framework. Like there is an initiative like Open Service Mesh. All these are kind of open source, but they are supporting the they're giving you the service mesh as a platform. And AWS is also building, Azure is also building. All these cloud providers have also giving you as a managed service, but the key is that once you get into service mesh, and definitely it's used more for synchronous communication of services, where you have a request reply kind of mechanism. But now these platforms are also adopting async, and also you don't have to worry about that if you're using service mesh, it's going to take care of lots of these out of the box capabilities. Now, one thing to notice here is that lots of these capabilities, some of the legacy, like from our earlier experience, we used to get these from API management. So yes, in my view, API management is a competing technology to service mesh. And what these API management tools like MuleSoft or Apigee have started doing is now they have adopting service mesh. So in recently, I have seen that MuleSoft has launched that they have integrated Istio rather than competing with them. They are supporting Istio, that they MuleSoft can also talk to the Istio cluster, and they can talk to each other. So there goes the collaboration, right? So now they understood the service mesh is evolving. They are overlapping areas with API management, so they started adopting service mesh as well. So that's a good trend for service mesh. The fifth trend is and you might have seen a lot of news about cloud native architecture as an architect, right? And we all should be, in my opinion, in today's world, in modern architecture, when we say we have to start advocating cloud native architecture, which is completely redefining how we have been building application and enterprise architecture. So nowadays, like cloud native is the new normal. And I'll just do one clarification. Like when people say cloud native, most of us are only thinking, oh, that means I have to go to AWS, Azure, or Google Cloud. No, cloud native. And if you have not been following CNCF, which is Cloud Native Computing Foundation, um, they are kind of leading open source community promoting cloud native is not just a cloud service provider and using their services. Cloud native is from their definition, is building something which is lightweight, which is, if you remember, like this is from 10 years back, right? When Heroku, they started building and creating the 12-factor app as principles, and I have added just observability as a 13th principle. But um, these principles kind of started as a baseline for cloud native. When I say cloud native, like your system or your application should be having one code base. Don't try to share code base. Your processes should be more stateless. Your dependencies should be more explicit. You should have your own build and release process for each service. Don't store configuration in the environment. Keep it external to the application. Dev should environment should be in as close to production rather than keeping it totally different environment. Admin processes, logs, and all. So these establish the foundation for the cloud native kind of principles, in my opinion. And when 5 years back, like CNCF started as a community, they started defining what is cloud native. And cloud native is, like I said, it's not only cloud service provider. You can also build your own cloud and private cloud and deploy cloud native services. So essentially, the way cloud native is defined and redefined, I would say, by CNCF, is basically to build your scalable modern application. Google and Azure and all these are public cloud providers, but you can build, like I said, private cloud, hybrid cloud, or whatever, right? It's your own cloud as well. So cloud native is bigger than that. They use some of the technologies like containers, service mesh, microservice, immutable infrastructure, and all. But these are like foundation layers for cloud native. And to build that kind of a loosely coupled system, robust application is what the essence of the cloud native is. And you can read the charter of the cloud native here, which is the link here, which Cloud Native Computing Foundation has written a paper on it, that what should be a cloud native. And if you can look at the right of this diagram, is the reference architecture, is you have a bare metal, or we are saying the infrastructure. On top of that, you are uh, putting something like a provisioning solution, and in Azure or AWS, it's the AWS which is doing most of this heavy lifting. But essentially, the provisioning, runtime, and orchestration management, this is all done by cloud service provider. But you can also use some of the platforms which can provide this capability, so that your team's focus is on the top layer, which is your application development, but the rest of the things are being taken care by the cloud native platform. But you don't need to necessarily rely on only cloud service provider. That's the key message. So this is a landscape which CNCF, I know it's very complex, but if you start deciphering some of these areas, and if you go to cncf.com and go to their landscape and they have now a different visualization for this one as well. So what they have done is they have started compiling that when it comes to app definition, when it comes to observability, runtime, provisioning, what are the cloud native solutions which are available. And you can already see that there are more than 100 plus solutions which are available. And when I say platform, AWS is not the only platform. There are many platforms where you can build your own cloud kind of solution as well. And like serverless is also part of cloud native. Like there are many members which are supporting this whole foundation. So all these innovative solution like service mesh, API gateway, all these are now becoming aligned to that cloud native, kind of a architecture paradigm, so that you can correlate with them, and they are leading towards some. So CNCF is doing a great job in kind of compiling this and also providing a community where we can build that cloud native. So as an architect, my message, be aware of all these kind of key tools, not that you have to be aware of all of them. And use cloud native when you are designing new system or refactoring an existing system, whatever is the case. Okay, so I know we have limited time, so I'm moving fast. Let me know if I'm moving to. I need to. You guys
Yeah,
need to slow me down, but yeah.
yeah, you can continue, Ankur. I think this is very interesting. I believe people will also comment, and if you are feeling it interesting, I think we may
Yeah,
Stable,
Anjali, thanks.
explain
Yeah, I think
some
we can
knowledge
have,
bases. Yes.
you can keep posting your questions in Q&A, and
Yeah.
me and Anjani will try to make sure that we either answer it right away or we'll answer at the end of the session.
Yeah.
Um, Now the sixth trend, which I'm big fan of, is the observability space. And when I say observability, is it's a new name given to the same thing which we used to, call it monitoring earlier. But why the monitoring, the traditional monitoring is obsolete is we need to understand the history behind it. Because earlier, okay, we have. If you remember old days, you have a Linux terminal, you monitor logs, you go to and issue these Linux commands and see what is the process state. And from Java, you suppose because definitely I'm a Java background guy, so I'll give Java example, is that you go to JVM, you see the memory dump, you take the heap dump. So that's something which is traditional, right? You are doing a monitoring, you're trying to figure out what's wrong in the system. If there is a production issue, you're trying to troubleshoot that. Now, because of the evolution of cloud native microservices and new modern architecture, it's becoming more like traditional ways of monitoring. It's not the something which you can live with, right? You have 20,000 different Linux terminals. So if I'm using Docker, I have in a typical architecture, you have 1,200, 500 containers, so you can't monitor. So you have to go to a complete observability as a solution. And a lot of application performance monitoring tools have now renamed or redefined themselves as observability. But it's also, as an architect, it's not most of the architects which I see is that what they say, oh, I'm using Dynatrace, I'm using a New Relic, I'm using Splunk or any APM solution, and they say, oh, my job is done. No, I think those tools are okay. They can provide the instrumentation, they can do some bit of it, but observability is bigger than that. It's bigger than just integrating those solutions. Because when I have to know that there is a production issue, and if you can't figure out what went wrong and how went wrong and what I need to do, then basically your system is still not mature enough. And I'm not saying I've designed the perfect system in my career, but we're all learning from it. But what my experience is definitely, and that's the industry is also leading, it's when you are saying observability, how you can measure the system state, how you can know that if there is a problem, that I can figure out what the problem in the system is. So in new modern architecture, whether you use even using AWS, like AWS offers CloudWatch, but just integrating CloudWatch is not going to help you bring that metrics, traces, events. You have to build that in your system. None of these tools I have seen that can do like all of them. Because if I talk about distributed tracing, I really struggle with any solution, because reason is that it's you need some application context. It's observability, but you definitely have to also kind of simulate what and that's why you might have seen in a lot of these new practices like SRE, and Google has coined SRE, but which is site reliability engineering. But a lot of these new practices are coming where you are doing chaos engineering and all. You are doing chaos engineering because the observability is the key. You're trying to figure out what's wrong in the system in non-production environment and also in production environment. You don't have to wait till the issue comes. You are basically playing those scenarios out in advance. So I mean, a lot of these techniques like chaos engineering is trying to do the same thing, that you try to use and test these chaos scenarios that crash a particular system and see what happens on purpose, so that you can simulate the real world in production, not even in non-production one. So in order to do that, I'm not saying that you go and start shutting down your production servers in today's world. You have to start planning for that, and it's a gradual process. So um, observability is a big concept. I know that you can read a lot about it, but it's not my key message. It's not just integrating an APM solution. You have to go and do something bigger than that, right? So in my experience, you have to also research as an architect and also see that your application can support that or not. And yeah, somebody just been Gatling and all. Gatling is definitely going to help you with the unit performance testing, but again, it's an ecosystem. It's not only one tool can suffice the purpose, but you need to see that, can you, and suppose I'm designing an online reservation system, try to experiment with troubleshooting scenarios. If you do this, if this order fails, that can you trace it in your real system? And if your tools, your process or practices are not supporting that, that means there's something wrong. So try to do your own maturity model as well, which is based on your experience, and not so you will not find something which is going to work by all these vendors. You have to also, as an architect, figure out what works from your application. So observability is a big area. I know it's something which is very interesting. We can talk about it for days, but it's really upcoming. A lot of new tools and all those things are kind of coming up, and this is just a glimpse of what open source is doing in observability. And some of these tools like CNCF is saying that you can start adopting, like from open source perspective, definitely Grafana and all. And there are some licensed tool here as well. That open metrics is a standard which is given by Google. Is now it's open telemetry, which is in the SS phase. But open metrics is not much with open telemetry, but there are a lot of these tools. You can see that even the CloudWatch is mentioned here, which is from AWS. A lot of these tools are basically coming together to do the same thing, that how I can help you redefine observability. But my message is that tool is not going to help you only. You have to also think about what's your maturity model. Like I said, that document the scenarios and figure out whether you can play the scenario and really use those to troubleshoot the issues when the real production issue comes. So observability is something which you have to start considering very seriously if you're designing a production grade systems. And the seventh trend which I see, and I'm a great proponent of Kubernetes. The reason being is that now, in my journey, I mean, I did my first Linux project in like 2000. And that time somebody told me, oh, Linux will die, right? So because of so many things, so many cool things were coming. But, you know, Linux was as powerful at that time, and so powerful. And recently they just completed 30 years of Linux, right? So Linux, the way the Linux did it for the operating system, what I'm seeing right now and what the industry is also saying right now is Kubernetes is the new Linux in case of the foundational platform. And why I am saying this foundational platform, what do we mean by that, right? So you have infrastructure as a service, you have SaaS models like AWS managed services and all those, and you have platform as a service. I've been passionately following like what's happening in platform as a service space, and there are a lot of I'm always a big fan of standardization, and I've seen that there's very little standardization in Kubernetes. Before even Kubernetes, like there were some community which we started like Cloud Foundry, and they started doing a lot of those things to create that platform. And somehow Cloud Foundry was not supported by all vendors, right? But Kubernetes is now, I can see that although given to the community by Google, and I can see everybody, like all big shots like IBM, Google, AWS, all of them are now supporting Kubernetes, which is a good sign that it's becoming more like a industry de facto standard. So it is definitely going to be, if you're not Kubernetes friendly architect, you have to start experimenting because every that how you can use a managed Kubernetes service from cloud service provider, or you can use a vendor managed solution like Rancher, OpenShift, and all. But you have to choose the right strategy when you are designing your application deployment architecture, whether you're going to go with serverless like AWS, ECS and all. Like, you have many options. It's up to you and your application context or your environment in your organization, that how do you want to apply the Kubernetes strategy. Do you want to self-manage? You have Rancher, you have so many other platforms like D2IQ, is that you can manage your own Kubernetes as well. So if I look again, CNCF, it again does a tremendous job in terms of what are the Kubernetes platform ecosystem, and it's already growing. And these are all the options already is as a Kubernetes platform. We always think Kubernetes is okay, open source, but all these vendors are now extending Kubernetes and then creating something on top of it, right? So it's not only limited to GKE, AKS, and all. Like these a lot of these companies are creating their own version of Kubernetes, and they've been very successful in doing that. So it's great to be aware, not just EKS and AKS. You should be aware of OVH Cloud and so many other companies which are like Rancher and all. They're doing a great job in, in terms of customizing and providing something like never been done for like DigitalOcean. Like they're doing also an excellent job. So I choosing the right platform, you just keep exploring these options is also one of your tasks as an architect, so that when you are choosing the right Kubernetes strategy, you have the broader knowledge that what are these solutions offering and all that. So I'm gonna move fast on the eighth thing which I'm observing. It's more about, serverless, and we can't live without serverless nowadays, because managed services and serverless are the new kind of mantra for most of the application architecture. And because the focus is on solving business problem, focus is not on creating a service yourself, and you are the days are gone where you are saying, oh, I'm going to take 20 days to set up this framework or install this Kafka cluster and whatnot, because now people are going for managed service, because or serverless in application is that where you don't have to worry about infrastructure bit. And definitely serverless is one of the key thing whenever you are designing an application architecture, you need to find the right solution and whether serverless makes sense for you or not. So that's another trend that you start thinking about. Use them as a foundational block. And one thing I just want to mention is serverless doesn't again mean that you're using AWS, AKS and all. You can also build your own private serverless platform and use that. And that's the hybrid platform which is coming in recent days. So if I look at some of the tools available again from CNCF, is you can see that you know there are a lot of frameworks which are available nowadays. Like Microsoft released, I've been reading about Dapper, and they've released this recently, and it's a great framework, and it's again a competing solution to Service Mesh, but it provides a platform through which you can do event-driven services or all that. But and you can do serverless development as well. So you don't have to install Dapper. It's just it gives like it gets provided a lot of these things capabilities, like and some of the old company like Spring has pushing a lot on a Spring Cloud Function, and in next few days we have Spring 1, so you will hear a lot about Spring Cloud Function is a serverless framework where it's lightweight, it's trying to compete with all those different frameworks. So a lot of frameworks are coming in serverless world. It's not only that, and a lot of platforms are coming. Like these platforms allow you to build your own serverless environment. Like Kubeless and Knative is one of the most popular one in these days. It's Kubernetes based, but it's something which Apache OpenWhisk is also popular. OpenFaaS is also popular. So I think you have to, again, we always think about the hosted platform. When I say hosted platform, it's AWS, Lambda, and Azure functions. But these are the options which can give you to install your own serverless kind of infrastructure and all, so that if you want to manage hybrid solution, multi-cloud solution, you can still use that. So serverless is one key area you have to keep reminding is it's not about just using S3. It's more about, the ecosystem of the serverless it's evolving very fast. It's in all the areas of compute, network, storage. So be aware of all those things, right? Ninth trend which I'm seeing is it's around security. And zero trust architecture, you must have heard about this keyword. If you haven't, that's one of the trend, and it's more about how because without security, looking at the security hacks, what's happening around the world, is definitely your business is gone, right? So organizations are very serious about it, and they started implementing zero trust security as a principle and as a practice, and it's a whole new topic, and we can talk like hours talking about zero trust security. In US, there's a standardization company like NIST, which kind of published a whole white paper, and then they define zero trust security is not only technology, it's also about people, it's also about devices, network, and workloads. So they do, and also data security. So it's not only one single view of security. So you should read about security like as an architect, and that's where I'm getting to, right? That you don't need to be expert of everything, but you need to be aware of all these areas. Like we talked about infrastructure, we are not talking security. So because if you're not aware, how are you going to design your enterprise application? You have security architect, but you, as an application architect, as a modern architect, you still need to be aware of it, right? So security is another thing which you ensure that you're following, and Microsoft adopted NIST in Azure, and this is one of the example, right? How you can adopt zero trust security. Right? It's a 12-step process. It's a huge uplift to what you have been doing so far. It's not only identity management system, how you are managing identity, how you're authenticating with IoT and all. Like it's becoming more and more like device security and all. So the communication is going, not earlier we used to have a top down communication that request will go to load balancer, from there it will go to web server, app server. With microservices and modern architecture like serverless, they what we call it like east west traffic, right? The services are talking to each other, so the security is more important when it's not top down, now it's left to right? So I think that's where you have to understand how do you enforce security. And a lot of if you do Google it out, like AWS zero trust security, they will provide some tools, some features. So you don't have to worry about implementing all of them, but you need to ensure that you leverage most of them, and follow the path. I think that's the key message. Follow the path. Ensure that you are, as an architect, you are aware of zero trust architecture, and that helps you to take care of security at each angle of in each aspect when you are recommending any application architecture. Having said that, the last thing, but not the least thing, is about the automation. And automation, we all know that, like I said, that as an application modern architect, we need to be aware of different scenarios. So DevOps is one other area, and it's been extended. New trends are coming in terms of automation, and DevOps is not the only area. Like it's all about testing automation and all, but you need to be cognizant of testing automation, GitOps, AIOps, all these new automation techniques are coming. So if you are a data science guy or not even a data science guy, definitely AIOps will make a sense for you. But if you're just an application guy, definitely the new CD practices like GitOps, which is a way of deploying and making everything as a code, like infrastructure as a code, whether it's a push-based deployment or pull-based deployment. GitOps is coming up as a modern way for CD, not the CI. We know CI is through checking everything as part of the pipeline, but GitOps and some of these practices are just to deploy more often, just to make sure that you are following the best practices in terms of how you're pushing code to production. So you might have again an infrastructure team, DevOps team in your organization, but as an architect, again, be aware of what's happening in GitOps world. even you're not a data science guy, you should be aware of what's happening in machine learning. Just that they are also becoming more and more pipeline based, and I know it makes sense for people who are in data science, but soon you will see that the AIOps will redefine your pipeline. That means even the application pipeline will be kind of not a static pipeline. It will be AI driven. So that's the trend which is coming up. So we as an application architect need to be aware that what's happening in that field, so that we can take advantage of that. At least be aware of that. That okay, tomorrow the AI ops it's gonna take care of certain things which we don't need to worry about. So there you go. I think that's the key areas which I just I know there are a lot of things which a lot of technologies I threw up on you guys, but I think as a broader technologist, I think these are some of the 10 areas, 10 tips I would say as a modern architect we all need to be aware of. And I'll happy to engage in more conversation, and definitely over to you, Anjani, for Q&A, and we can talk more about that. And you can follow me there in Twitter or for more conversation if you want to do afterwards.
Yes, thank you, Ankur. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, cool. Yeah, any question, guys? You are feel free to ask to Ankur. So let's go back to the chat. Yeah, so I think the first question is, any of these frameworks tailor-made for IoT? I think the first question is from
most of like Python and Java frameworks, and short answer is yes. And microservices framework, we know that these frameworks are now getting designed for IoT. So short answer is yes, actually. And I mean, IoT is getting more lightweight, and the communication protocol which we talked about is like it's geared toward MQTT and all, but eventually it all ties back to the same kind of a framework, right? That how you are choosing the right communication pattern for IoT and right framework for IoT.
And the people were waiting for the code. Just wait for a moment. We'll announce the code also, and we'll also show you how to claim your certificate. And yes, so recording and everything is already, because the platform that we have built on is state of the art, and it has everything on that. So fifthir.com/Ankur. Once you click on it, you will get recording, will get certificate, and whole lot of thing, and all the document and the links that Ankur is sharing today, we'll try to put in there. So I'm again pinging the link again on the chat window. It's fifthir.com/Ankur. Most probably you would have come from here, but you would not have noticed that when you tried entering into the into the dashboard, it has defined, yeah, it has your private dashboard. That's your private dashboard. Anytime you come here, you will see your stuffs there as it is. Even if you claim your certificate, you can download your certificate anytime. So yeah, the another question is, so our cloud providers started adopting Zero Trust? Yes, they adopt Zero Trust, and most probably when you experience the cloud platform, you will see that most of the framework that Ankur is talking about is already implemented on the cloud platform.
Yeah,
but I think I'll pass it to Ankur. Yeah.
Just want to call out that even though they are like some of these practices we need to implement them, they are providing the framework.
Yes.
For example, service to service communication, how you are securing, they are giving you an option of that you can encrypt the communication, but if you're not encrypting, that means you are not actually following the the principle of zero trust, right? So I think that's where
Gatling you answer, right? Leveraging Gatling side, that was in between the discussion that I could notice. So any other question, guys? If you can ping here, or we'll announce the code now. Okay, so let me announce the code. So I'm sharing my screen, Ankur, now. So I believe you guys are able to see my screen. So the code is GF1Q74. You can see on my screen. Those who don't know how to claim the certificate, I will quickly go on the site, and I will show you how to do it. So you just open your browser. You just have to type fifthir.com/Ankur. Even through Google you can search courses on 10 top tips by Ankur, and it will take you to this link. And once you are here, you see there's a video is also playing, the same streaming is happening. And here in your case, in your panel, it should be showing one free certificate to claim. You just have to click this link. It will take you to a page where it will ask you for your name, email, phone number. Obviously it's because you've already logged in here, so it's all comes pre-filled, and then it will ask you for a code. Once you give this code, you have to pass this code. They are type in this code, which is like you can see again, GF1Q74. sorry, just give me a moment. I'm also pinging this up in the chat window. GF1Q47. Oh my god, just hold on. Just copying this up and putting this up into the chat window. So you just have to use this code, and your certificate will be emailed to you. And also do check your do check your spam window, and you can also come back on the dashboard again after some time, maybe after 2-3 minutes, and it will be there attached in the way it was attached here. I was showing you, like it will say one free certificate ready to download. Other than that, you can also use the suggested session. If you need, you can upload your CV, and then you can go through different sessions. Even Ankur was talking about Zero Trust. There is a session specifically by Mahesh Patil on Zero Trust. You can search and here, and then you can go and take that session also, Zero Trust. Okay. And there are multiple other sessions too. So this is by Mahesh, and you can also take a look into it. So any other question, guys? Any thing that you would like, or else we'll wrap up the session. Okay. So thank you, Ankur, for giving your precious time today.
No issues. Thank you, Anjali.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for joining. And if you have any issues, you can join our Telegram channel, and you can ask any specific question that we need to pass it to Ankur. Thank you everyone. Thank you, Ankur, once again.